out all the way back till last fall and still starting out, being able to meet outside. Pretty fun. Yeah, Nick, are we good to go? Wonderful. All right, well, once again, good evening and welcome everyone with us online or as you're able to watch. Hard to believe, but we're already here in spring, wrapping up our Axis year. But for those of you in high school, and a special invitation for all of you 8th graders as well, that Revolution will continue on into May. Still Wednesday nights, still 6:30 to 7:30. So for high schoolers and 8th graders now to get a taste of the next stage of the faith journey here at Prince of Peace, Revolution will continue. But for Axis, for our middle schoolers, it's been a wonderful year of learning and asking questions, exploring, and just time to gather as families, as small groups. So we're grateful for your commitment, your participation, and engagement, and all that God does through the year. Hard to believe it was just fall, and now here we are slowly but surely eking our way into spring. But I don't want to take up too much of our guest time tonight. Continue to watch for those parent emails as far as relevant middle school youth news and happenings here at Prince of Peace. There's feedback we'd love to hear from you, as well as ways to continue being engaged and participating as a community here at Prince of Peace. So those email communications will continue to come out. But as we've promised, last week we had Pastor Natalia join us, and tonight we have Kevin from Avenues for Youth here with us to share about the good work that Avenues continues to do. And I want to tie that all the way back and remind us all of our connection to specifically Brooklyn Avenues, just up the road from us. When Brooklyn Park and the northwest suburbs as a whole saw the need, felt the need for help with young people experiencing homelessness here in the region, they did something about it. They got together. Last week, I think we talked about spirit nudges. Well, it nudged a whole lot of people, myself included. I camped out on a rooftop to raise awareness and raise funds, along with several other church workers for Brooklyn Avenues. And now, here they are, right in our own community. So Kevin is on staff full-time with Avenues for Youth, and he's going to share about how they're doing and ways that we as a Prince of Peace community, and as we go on into the school year and into summer, as we go about our different areas, how we as individuals can still partner and make an impact for Avenues and for youth right here in our own community. So I'm going to hand it on over to Kevin. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, everybody. It feels weird using this, but I know it's for folks at home. I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Kevin Jonas, and I work at Avenues for Youth. And a lot of you know that we have a shelter, as Brett said, just around the corner from here. So my job at Avenues for Youth is I go and I talk to a lot of corporate groups, so these business resource groups at Best Buy or Cargill or Ecolab or Boston Scientific, and I partner with them, to raise some money because as a homeless youth shelter, we are a nonprofit and we always require donations to keep the doors open and the lights on and hot meals on the table. But then really I talk to a lot of groups about youth homelessness and the root causes because education is so important in order to confront why some youth are experiencing homelessness in our community. So my presentation typically is usually a little more geared towards an adult crowd, but I'm going to simplify it and not go over some of the hard topics, but we won't get down too much into the details. So as I said, my name is Kevin, and before we begin, I just want to tell you a little about myself. So this is me, and that's my partner, Aaron, and our two dogs, Junior and Raymond. We moved here last year from New York City, but prior to that, I grew up here, not far from here in Maple Grove, and I went to St. Stephen's in downtown Anoka Catholic School and to Totino Grace High School. And at one point in time, I was just like one of you, sitting in the church on a Wednesday afternoon with my youth group, and it was some of the best experiences of my life, and it helped really inform my character, my principles, my values, and so it's awesome you guys are here. I think it's really cool. And to your left, you're going to see our whole group at Avenues for Youth. This is our staff. We like to put our faces out there so people, when they think of Avenues for Youth, they don't just think of this abstract building around the corner. Avenues for Youth is people. Just like Prince of Peace isn't a building, it's you. It's the congregation. This is who we are, and every day of the week we partner with youth between the ages of 16 and 21 that for a couple of reasons don't have a house to live in or family to rely on. So before we begin, this is something I do usually with all the grown-up groups we give presentations to and we talk about root causes of homelessness, is we do a check-in question. And that's a way to get into the feeling of being in a conversation, using your voice, and being invested in the topic. So the check-in question I always do with our adults, and I know the kids, it's not hard to answer this, is who's your favorite singer? Who's your favorite band? Who's your favorite musical artist? Does anybody have any they want to shout out? Crickets. Oh, here we go. Billie Eilish, super good. What about you, Brent? When you were a kid, when you were their age.
I mean, right now,
Guilty Pleasure, such a good song.
No, the Head in the Heart.
Head in the Heart when you were a youth.
No, right now.
Now, how about when you were their age?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to take your word for it that it's super good. How about one of the parents? When you were your kid's age, who was your favorite singer? The Doors. Good answer. Good answer. Oh, we have incentives. So the reason I asked this question is because when I talk to adults, I try to get them to remember when they were your age. And one of the best ways to do that is to associate it with music, because psychological research has told us that the musical tastes we form when we're your age shape our tastes for the rest of our life. I bet you still listen to the Doors, don't you? Yeah. And so I use this to center us, to remember when we're talking about youth experiencing homelessness, we're talking about youth just a couple of years older than you. At Avenues anyways, we partner with 16 to 21-year-olds. These are kids that are still in high school. They're still learning about themselves. They're still struggling to figure out what their passion is, what they want to do growing up, but they have this added barrier that something really traumatic has happened, and for that reason, they don't have a family to live in with, and they don't have a roof over their head. And sometimes they get into pretty dangerous situations. So I would just like to ground us. Remember, you guys don't have a hard time doing this because you're already that age, what it's like to be a young person. So Avenues for Youth. We have 2 shelters. This big, beautiful building right here is located up in North Minneapolis. And every year, so it has room for about 21 young people at any given point to stay there. And then we have Brooklyn Avenues, just a half a mile down the road, just on 76. And we have 11 bedrooms there, single bedrooms for youth to stay in. And then we have 2 other community programs. One program is for young families. So sometimes there are young moms as young as 16, 17 years old that also have little ones of their own because they were getting romantic too early in life. And because of that, they have little kids and they have no means of supporting themselves or their little ones. So we work with the state in Hennepin County. They refer us these families. And what we do with them is we provide rental subsidies for apartments that we work with landlords with so that mom and her kids have a place to be. And then mom and her kids also get access to a pediatrician, mental health counselor, food, educational support. We really want everybody to finish school. And then job support too. How do you find a job? And then we have another program too called Connect. Now Connect is kind of what makes Avenues famous across the country. It's kind of a one-of-a-kind model that's been replicated. And so a lot of 16 to 21-year-olds that are coming down to the Twin Cities that are experiencing homelessness, sometimes are experiencing homelessness because they got kicked out of the home because they came out as lesbian or gay or bisexual or transgender. And they have nowhere to go, and some family members just have prejudices and don't want to support them. They tell them, go. And so they come down to Avenues, and about 15 years ago, a lot of these young people would not stay the night in these youth shelters because they're being bullied by the other youth and by even some of the people that work there. So Avenues in the community came up with this model where we place these special young people experiencing a particular form of trauma directly in the homes of other LGBTQ families or allied families that have a spare room and that can provide them room and board, all the food, fridge space, dinner every night of the week, and their own bedroom. And so this program has been really successful, and every year we work with, there's about 10 homes that we work with at any given time, and 100% of the youth in that program go on to get their own apartments or their own housing because they had that kind of level of support. Through the rest of the programs, we work with about 250 to 300 youth a year that are experiencing homelessness. And those that leave our shelters, about 70% of them are successful and go on to rent their own apartment, finish school, get a job, and become just like everybody else. And we do that because we believe it's this holistic model. Just giving somebody a roof over their head and a hot meal isn't going to solve their problems. So Avenues is a trauma-informed organization because we recognize that whatever happened with that young person was probably pretty upsetting. And if you don't deal with what's upsetting you, you're not going to get past it. And sometimes it leads to unwise and risky behaviors, like self-medicating, maybe drinking when you're a young person, or experimenting with drugs or cigarettes and things like that. And because of that, we try to treat the trauma. So we have a mental health counselor. We have a physical doctor that treats everybody. We have a job person who teaches them how to apply for a job, whether it's at the Target down the street on this street, or Cub, or McDonald's, or Starbucks, or even somewhere else like at a school. And then we also have independent wellness programs to teach you life skills. Because like a lot of you guys, you're lucky, you've got mom and dad helping you learn how to grow up. Some of these young people come to us with literally just a garbage bag with their clothes in it. They have nothing else. And what they also don't have is the know-how if they wanted to open a bank account, apply for a job, go to school, rent an apartment. You know what you need? An identification. You know how you get an identification? You have your birth certificate. and you have your Social Security card. And a lot of youth that are 16, 17 years old don't know where it is. Mom and dad had it at one point, and for whatever reason, they don't have it. So when they come to us, it's one of the first things we do. Make sure they got a roof over their head, safe spot to sleep, make sure they're physically okay. And then we talk to them about their goals and how do you reach those goals. And one of the first steps is these life skills. And that's, let's get your ID, and then let's talk about how to apply for a job. Have you finished school? And what are your dreams beyond just having a place to live that's safe and secure? So youth homelessness in Minnesota is kind of a big deal right now. Unfortunately, every year, there's a little over 13,000, conservatively, young people that will experience homelessness at least one night or more. And on any given night, there's 6,000 young people across the state, but really kind of primarily here in the Twin Cities area, that are experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity. And so there's a difference here. So housing insecurity could mean maybe you're not sleeping out on a sidewalk or under a bridge or on the metro line or on a bus, but maybe you're jumping from couch to couch to couch with friends. That's a hard way to live. It's not very stable, and it's pretty upsetting. So on any given night, there's 6,000 of these young people that don't have a secure place to live. And we only have shelter beds in the state for 15% of those 6,000 people. So Avenues recognizes that this is a crisis, and we need to do more to talk about the issue in our community and recognize that there are youth out there experiencing this, and work together, partner with the youth, walk beside them as they find homes and they achieve their dreams. And unfortunately, the youth experiencing homelessness are disproportionately Black, Indigenous, or youth of color. I think at Avenues, 89% of the kids in our shelter are Black or youth of color, and about 40% are LGBTQ+. And so one of the things we like to talk about are the root causes of youth homelessness. So there is some, I think this is an important topic because there is often times where, I remember when I was young, I didn't know anybody that was homeless, let alone somebody my age. And if somebody had told me that there was somebody my age experiencing homelessness, you know what I would have immediately thought? Oh, it's one of those kids that's always in juvie. It's that kid that's always in detention. It's that kid that's always in trouble. That's not the case. At Avenues, if there's 250 young people we partner with every year, there are 250 reasons that they have found themselves in the situation of being homeless. In Minneapolis, one of the #1 reasons is evictions. So there's a couple of youth right now that are about 17, 18 years old that are staying with us. They were in a single family home with mom, couple of siblings. Mom lost her job during the pandemic. The eviction moratorium went away. They couldn't pay the rent, and they got kicked out of their home. Mom found herself able to move in with a boyfriend. Another mom was able to go to an adult shelter. Young siblings going to an aunt or uncle's house, but the 17-year-old or that 18-year-old didn't have any place to go and was couch hopping with friends until that ran out and they had no more couches to jump to, and so they found themselves out on the street. So that's why they came to Avenues. Another young man was staying at Avenues because it was just him and his dad in their apartment, and his dad got arrested and went to jail, and he found himself on his own at 17. Pretty scary. A little too old to get into the foster care system and to be in an orphanage, but young enough to not really know how to go out and apply for an apartment, or even being able to. You really, 17-year-olds can't apply for an apartment. You have to be 18 or older. And even then, it's hard. Landlords generally don't want to rent just to an 18-year-old unless you got mom and dad with you co-signing to make sure that you're good for this. So there's lots of reasons. Sometimes family violence. Sometimes there's drug abuse at home. A lot of scary things can happen when drugs are involved with families, and a lot of our youth come to us because that is an issue. Obviously, as we talked about, school problems, substance abuse, pregnancy, sexual activity at a young age. When you start doing things that are more adult focused, and it can get tricky. So you got to be careful there. But it's not because they're bad kids. And then there's barriers to stable housing. So once a youth finds themselves unable to support themselves, they don't have family to take care of themselves, and they're homeless, it's sometimes hard to get out of homelessness. And so not having your basic needs met. So if you don't know where you're going to sleep at night or how you're going to fill your tummy the next day, you're not thinking about those long-term goals about how do I get an ID, how am I getting back into school, how do I get a job. You're just thinking about right now, am I safe, do I have food? And then obviously experiencing homelessness can be really upsetting and traumatizing, and if you don't deal with that trauma, you tend to have risky behaviors and depression, and it's hard to get motivated. You don't trust adults. You don't want to ask for help. So that's another barrier as to why they can't get out. And then there's some really scary stuff, like essentially why Avenues was in Brooklyn Park, is there's sometimes scary people that exploit young people that are experiencing homelessness for their own gains, whether that's for money or for ulterior purposes. And then obviously being homeless really disrupts your education. You're not going to school if you don't have a home. And then the life skills, like I talked about. If you don't know how to apply for a job or get an apartment or get your ID or your social security card or open a bank account or go to a doctor's visit on your own and have health care, you're stuck in a no-win situation and a pretty vicious cycle. So we like to talk about the root causes and then these barriers to break down the stigma that somehow youth are experiencing homelessness because they're bad kids. They're not. These are kids just like any one of you, but something bad happened in life, and that's why it's incumbent upon partners like Brent and Prince of Peace and other members of the community that when we have something like Brooklyn Avenues nearby or Minneapolis and North Minneapolis, that we band together to do what we can to partner with these young people that something bad has happened to and recognize that being homeless is not their identity. We changed our name. We used to be called Avenues for Homeless Youth. Now we're just Avenues for Youth. And we changed our name because the young people staying in the shelter said, that's not my identity. I'm not a homeless youth. This is just one spot in my whole life's journey, and hopefully it's pretty short, and I don't like the stigma. So we respected that, and that made sense. I'm going to skip the systemic ones because that gets a little heavy. So I do have a video about one young person who agreed to be an interview for us. Interviewed for us about how she became to be homeless. And it's a pretty inspiring video. So it's about 5 minutes. And at the end of it, I'll tell you a little something about her. So it should be embedded into the... Technical difficulties, don't mind me. There we go.
My parents put me out because they found out that I was gay. Me and my father had like a really big fight about my sexual preference, and they told me not to come back. I was couch hopping between like 3 homes, and then we ended up in basically a crack house, and some things were said and some physical things were done to the point where like I just was numb.
When young young people walk through the door, you're always trying to kind of get a gauge for them. When she walked in, you could tell, I could tell, like, okay, she's gonna be tough.
When I actually met Bryce, it was more of a kind of like, oh no, like, I do not want him as my case manager, actually.
Sometimes in this work, you just kind of get used to repeating the same couple lines, the same. Makeda definitely was not going for any of that.
Whenever I would lash out at him about something that was like really small or didn't have anything to do with him, he would be like, so what's really the problem?
She forced my boundary line to just be super genuine, super open, and fair.
And so that was kind of like how our rapport started, with like the give and take of energy.
That was one thing that she didn't get from, I would say, from her household, is just people that just wanted to be fair and listen to what Makeda was saying.
I'm giving you positive vibes, so that in return you should be giving me positive vibes.
It was just very clear that she was so focused, so driven.
And knowing that he wasn't just listening for me to vent, he was listening so that we could come up with a solution. And Bryce taught me a lot about closure, that sometimes you don't get the closure that you want, you get the closure that you need.
The situations that most teens are in that we've come across are just teens that are just having a hard time explaining what they want. All kids want to be successful, all kids want to be happy. The question is, and where the confusion always lies, is the route in which to get there. So ideally, when we're at our best within the work as a team, as a family, everybody's all hands on deck. The mental health team, they just do a great job of having us understand the person. Put it all into a real good perspective, put their journey into a perspective, put their diagnosis into its perspective. Not that it's a crutch. It will never feel sorry for. It's just a matter of how we address these young people. And the mental health team is like, they start that whole party of us really being intentional on how we connect and address young people. We have our education and career specialists. They're not just looking for the first entry-level position just because they're homeless and say that that's what they're worth. No, we're really talking, let's really dream. Let's really think about what do you want to do at the next step. And we really do mean that, like really dream, really go forward. You are worth it. That's really the ultimate goal. Make sure that this young person believes in themselves enough that they feel like they don't necessarily need to call anybody at the first moment's notice, and that they trust themselves in their own decision making.
I was very disrespectful when I came in, and that was more of a defense mechanism because I didn't trust anyone. And avenues kind of like went layer by layer and like took band-aids off and repatched surfaces. And when I saw the change in myself, for me, I had more of a clarification of I can be really good and positive for someone that's going through the same thing as me. Like, not only can I have that type of versatile feel of I've been where you are, but I can also be able to like help them like grow without being overbearing. No one ever like just wakes up one morning and is like, I want to be a homeless person. And I'm going to go on a downward spiral till I have nothing left, till I have alienated myself and literally am at rock bottom. No one starts off life like that. So I just feel like for a dream would be that the world would be more compassionate towards others.
It's an honor to stand here before you and represent our young people. So since I am the lucky person to be able to do it, we want to thank you. From our young people to you, anything and everything that you could do to help gives our young people an opportunity to dream big. The world is theirs, and we're just here to help them go get it.
Sorry that wasn't so loud. I hope you could hear it. But the gist of it was, I like showing that story because it's the story of a real young person. And you have a question? Go ahead. She was kicked out because she was gay, and her dad didn't like that. And so she was 15 years old. And so she spent a couple months living in a drug house with other young people until some bad stuff happened that she just couldn't happen anymore. So she made her way to Avenues, and she spent 18 months at Avenues, getting her life back on track, learning about herself, building herself up, educating herself. And today, she literally is the person that runs the Brooklyn Avenue shelter. She's not just a case manager, she runs the whole thing. And she started at 15 as homeless. So it's a good reminder that if you know some young person in your life, maybe they live, in a less than ideal situation, or they don't have a lot of money, or maybe they live with grandpa and grandma. Not everybody has the same path as us. Not everybody has the same privilege, but that doesn't mean they can't go on to become something really spectacular. Because Makeda is one of the best people out there, and every day she changes the lives of young people that were just like her when she was 15. So this next slide is about what we do when we work with our community partners. So I was really excited to come and talk with all of you tonight because there's a really special magic, a synergy, when we have young people supporting other young people. It's a really powerful thing, and they know it too, because they know that you're their peers, you're just like them, and you care about them, and that matters, because it can get really dicey in school with bullying. And to have, a youth group like yours give time to learn about their situation means a lot. So how do we work with partners here is how we've worked with Brent over the last couple of years. I'm new to Avenues. It's only been 8 months. But Avenues has been working with Brent and Prince of Peace for 7 or 8 years? Yeah, about 8 years, I think. I know. And Brent, time is flying. And the way we work with our community partners is first and foremost, we got to talk about the issue. Most people don't realize that there's 6,000 young people that don't have a home right now. Secondly, we find out what do they need right now at that shelter. So we work with groups like Prince of Peace to make sure they have shampoo, deodorant, fresh towels, fresh bedding, school supplies, healthy meals and snacks, sporting goods so they can play basketball. We have a basketball court just around the corner at the shelter. And then we do things with them too, like taking them to a Twins game. We're going to the Saints game next week because it's important to realize they're still kids just like you. Just because something really scary has happened doesn't mean they're not kids anymore. They still have to go out and have fun and entertain themselves and be with their peers. And then the third thing we do is volunteer. And Brent's done a lot of this at Prince of Peace. So every couple of weeks, we have groups just like yours, kids just like you, come out and help us make sure that the house, Brooklyn Park, feels like a home. So we do lawn care, we sweep up that basketball court, we make sure the windows are washed. We do everything to make sure that where they're staying, whether it's for 1 week or like Makeda, up to 18 months, that while they're with us, it's their home. Just a couple of weeks ago, Catherine, our executive director, was telling the story that she was walking through the hallways of the Minneapolis shelter, and she overheard one young person on their phone saying, "No, I'll be there in a little bit. Yeah, I've got things to do. I'm still at home." And she's like, that's exactly the point of these shelters. This isn't a foster care home. This isn't a big orphanage. This is a home for you while you're here. And so we rely on volunteers to make sure that it feels like that. And then the last thing we do, and this is a big part of my job when I talk to the big corporations, is giving financial support. So Avenues, we're a little nonprofit charity, and to keep the houses hot and warm in the wintertime and air conditioned in the summertime, and to keep 3 hot meals on the table, and to pay for mental health counselors and pediatricians requires money. And so we get grants and foundational support and donations from all walks of the community, from people that are just giving us $2 a month to some big foundations or corporations that give us a couple $100,000 to make sure that these shelters stay open and that these youth have the best chance they can get to finding secure housing. And so that's what we want to do with Prince of Peace. So obviously, if you want to be involved, one of the first things you can do, it's what you're doing today, learning. And you got to retell these stories. You got to talk about it with your friends. If you're on social media or TikTok, share something about Avenues. Repost what we post about other youth, other young people your age that don't have it as good as you. And then help out. Prince of Peace is always welcome, and we're always ready to partner with Brent to have a group come down and help us at the shelter. It's just around the corner to do something fun. Whether that's doing some lawn care, which doesn't sound fun, I know. But we come up with creative activities that are engaging and meaningful for you. It's something fun you want to do, but it's also something that will help the youth that are there. And then obviously, the collection items. So you see that little house outside the door. Avenues has our big poster on it. Pretty much once a month, I think we get a call from Karina or somebody here, and they bring down some food or other things that have been collected. We're constantly in need of items for the young people at the shelter. And on our website, and this is, I didn't put this in the slide, but we always have an Amazon wish list or a Target wish list that lists every single thing that we're trying to get our hands on for the young people. Sometimes it's shampoo, sometimes it's deodorant, sometimes it's a new book bag or a sleeping bag or something like that. Sometimes it's really fun items, like during the holiday program, these young people don't have a Christmas at home with their mom and dad, so we work with groups like Prince of Peace. We did it here in December, where we had about 200 partners shop for presents for these young people. And we let them know. We don't tell anybody their names. We protect their privacy. They have dignity, and we're sensitive to that. But we say, this young person is 17, and she really loves art, and she loves to journal. Her favorite color is pink. This is what kind of sweatshirt she wears. This is her size. And people went out into the community. They went to Target. They went to Macy's, and they bought this young person all these things. So on Christmas morning, she had gifts to open. And it wasn't just about having the stuff, but it was about being seen, that the community recognized who she was as an individual. And so it's a really special way of getting involved. And then we're obviously always open to ideas, and this is where I really love partnering with young people, because you're the same age almost as the kids in the shelter down the road, is how would you want to be supported? What are your needs? What are some creative ideas you would like to do to show these young people that A, you care, B, you see them, and C, you want to do something that could help them find a home, finish school, get a job, and become like Makeda, where she went on to change people's lives and literally run a homeless shelter. And so that's kind of where I want to leave it, is to talk to you about some of your questions and maybe hear some of your ideas. I see your hand up over there. Oh, you don't have a question, okay. Does anybody have any feedback? Does anybody have any stories you want to share? So I know, oh, you do? Go ahead. Amazing. Thank you for doing. See, that's the kind of fun thing that youth do. Youth supporting other youth. I don't know if everybody heard it at home, but we have one young person here who, for her birthday, had people give gifts for school supplies for the youth staying at Avenues, and that's incredible. We have this one young man who's literally graduating from high school this year, but he did exactly what you did. When he was 11 years old, he said, for my birthday, I don't want any gifts. I want to support other young people. And so he started a towel drive. Not something I would have thought of, but it is a real need. We go through a lot of towels. We've got 200 youth coming in through the shelters every year. We need always new towels. And when they go under their own home, they take those towels, they take their pillows, and they take their bedding. That's theirs now, so we always have to replenish. And so every year since he was 11, he did that for his birthday, making sure that we always had fresh towels. He was our main towel supplier in Minneapolis for so many years, and he was exactly like you. So I commend you for that. That was a great idea. Go ahead. avenuesforyouth.org, and I think it's right there in blue. It's kind of hard to read, though. And on that website, you can learn a little more. There's actual blog posts where we interview some of the young people. We don't show their pictures. We don't tell you their names, but we talk to them about their experience. Not just about what caused being homeless, because sometimes we don't want to just dwell on that, but about what their life is like at Avenues. What are their dreams and hopes? Because we got to keep focused on the future and recognizing that being homeless for them is just a part of their journey. And hopefully it's a short journey in homelessness. Well, awesome. You guys are a really good crowd. I saw your eyes the entire time, and I appreciate you giving me some of your time on a Wednesday night to learn about other young people. I think it's awesome, and I think Brent's doing a good job with you.
Well, thanks a lot, Kevin, and thanks to everyone at Avenues as well and the work they continue to do, and all of you as well as the Prince of Peace community and at home too. A few things that continue to stick out, to me year after year as we keep connected with Avenues and kind of reconnect now, as well as we as a community are coming together more and more in person once again. Oftentimes the opportunities to volunteer, especially with young people, require being older, and so for those of you on the younger side of things wanting to help and continue, just like the birthday party sponsorships, the in-kind donations, as often as you're here the rest of this school year, this summer, we're going to be at church, what can I bring to drop in the house at Avenues? Or, without even having to make us the go-between, the Amazon wish list, Smile, and things like that, it goes directly to Avenues, which is amazing.
It's always more fun when it's all collected, because we like to take a photo of Prince of Peace delivering stuff.
There you go.
Because it's good promotional work, because we want other people to be inspired by what you all do.
So it's sharing of your stories and thinking about, towels, school supplies, like Pastor Natalia just shared with us last week in her experience of God. As humans, we need that tangible, something to feel. We have physical needs, items we go through, the things we consider mundane. So maybe it's year after year those birthday party drives, or as often as you come to church, weekly, monthly, whatever it is, but knowing that not only am I coming to worship, but I'm also coming to give, and knowing that will pop over to Avenues. Sharing the stories as well. If you follow us at POP Youth Family, we're always sharing, again, what's happening with Avenues. So you don't always have to think it has to be, I'm volunteering, 20 hours a week there on site, or I'm giving hundreds of dollars every year. Every piece goes to contribute toward the greater good work that Avenues is doing. So what is your towel drive? What is your school supply birthday party? We all have those things. If it's me just plugging people into opportunities to connect. We've done in the past, small groups have cooked a meal and been able to deliver it. Our outreach team, we're a birthday buddy. I think I've been emailing that out pretty regularly. That's kind of stayed put in the Prince of Peace news. You can contribute to the Avenues Birthday Fund. Same goes for graduation coming up this spring. The grad parties are awesome.
Amy last week,
yeah.
one of your congregants, I met with her at the shelter, and on behalf of Prince of Peace, she brought 2 dozen cupcakes, sugar cookies, a birthday gift, a card, and we threw this young person in the shelter a birthday.
So those are the kinds of things that we want you to know are happening and that you are making possible. We don't always need the credit or the accolade, but if it helps share the story and inspire others to do the same, then that is the purpose for that. So know that. Think about that as you go on throughout the rest of the school year and this summer. Remember our neighbors just down the street, our neighbors in Minneapolis. And for parents, caring adults at home, do your employers sponsor a nonprofit match? Do you know someone who has a spare room in their house and has the means to take someone under their roof? I mean, it's a huge ask. That's huge. But those are the kinds of questions and the little nudges that maybe we are helping pass along. So all good things to think about, all good things that are happening. Thanks again so much, Kevin. Last call. Questions, thoughts, comments? Well, as they come, catch Kevin here before we go. As he just mentioned as well, that awareness, that education, grab a button, grab a flyer, keep an eye on our donation house here at church when you're in the building, or our post. Yeah, it'd be nice to know, like, if there are current needs.
So they don't just have to go to Amazon.
Yeah.
They're right there.
Exactly. So come grab those on your way out tonight, or check Avenues' website if you're watching with us online tonight or later on. You can go right there and send something on the spot. But to conclude and to wrap up, a huge thanks again to you as families, especially to our small group guides, Sarah, Rachel, Jamie, Nikki, everyone else at home. Access is not possible without you. And you as families investing in this time together, making it a priority, but also realizing that it's a lifelong journey. 99% of it happens outside of tonight, outside of Sunday morning. The Spirit goes with you into your homes, into your schools, into your circles, and God is at work in and through you, just as we've heard God's story through Scripture and the way in which we engage in our faith together as a community. It goes out from this place with you into that world. So for that, we are grateful and we celebrate and we keep at it. But for now, we'll say goodnight. Thanks. Have a good rest of the week.